Hello and welcome to In Focus. I'm your host, Yesenia Taveras. Summer's upon us, which means it's time to gather family and friends to experience the arts. Pamelyn Manocchio, Director of Community Engagement at the Grand Opera House, has worked in the arts for more than 20 years. In the past, she's worked with the city of Wilmington during the Summer in the Park series that brought a variety of cultural programming, dance, music, theater, visual arts, and crafts to Wilmington neighborhoods. Most recently, Pam is working with sensory-friendly family shows at the Grand Opera House that welcomes viewers of all ages with autism or other special needs to enjoy the experience of live entertainment with their families in a safe and comfortable environment. She joins us now. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Yes, thank you so much, Pam. I got to learn so much about you already.
It's been fun.
Yes, definitely. Talk to us a little bit about your upbringing in New York.
Oh gosh, I grew up on Long Island in New York, and it was a very basic, suburban upbringing, and I got into music at an early age. I started piano lessons when I was about 8 or 9 years old, and then I took up the flute when I was in elementary school, my 4th grade band, and it kind of just grew from there, a love for music, and my participation in the ensembles, my friends, everybody, we were all just always together making music all the time, and that was what we had fun doing, so that's just, kind of what we kept on at throughout my school years.
And was there something in particular that actually captivated you to fall in love with music?
I don't know that there was one thing in particular, except the camaraderie, I think, the teamwork, the elements of working so hard on a piece of music and practicing and working with other people, and just making it all come together to the excitement of the live performance. Mm-hmm. So being on stage and then actually making it through, those nerves build up, but when you make it through, and then the audience is so appreciative, and it's a lot of hard work, but it was really rewarding in the end, and I guess that's what I just kept aiming for.
And one thing, when we all look back on pictures, I like to say, oh, that's what it was like when I was living during those times.
Mm-hmm. That was my 80s.
How is it for you to take a look back on just this moment and this experience in your time in life?
It was just special memories. I loved those times. There was very happy days, and a little bit more carefree, but intense at the same time, because this might have been preparing for a competition or an audition or something, and so the pressure just would be on us to perform. But like I said, once it's all over, it's this relief and this happiness and satisfaction that you've done a really good job. So
it is, and we share that in common. I actually played the flute from 3rd grade to
12th
grade, and I love the arts.
And a few other instruments yourself.
Yes,
so that's a really great. Once you get into it, it's almost addicting. You just want to get to learn more and try out new and different things. One thing I actually didn't mention was, I played piano and I played flute, but now I'm also directing a handbell choir at my church locally. So we kind of keep it going. I just always have to have some kind of music in my life on a regular basis.
I was going to say, is there anything that you can share with us in regards to what you've been able to take away from learning music? I think nowadays in our schools, it's kind of less attended, our music classes, which for me is such a bummer, because those were some of the best days of my life.
They were.
And I got so much out of it.
My best friends were all in the band, in the concert band and symphonic band, and they were the people that we all, like I said, we all worked together. I think teamwork is a really important part of musicianship. But another really a vital aspect of it is listening, and these days so many people are talking to each other and at each other, but being a musician, you have to learn how to listen to your director, listen to your other musicians in your ensemble, listen to what you're producing as far as your sound goes, and listening is just an important part of being a valuable member in the community. You have to know how to listen to people around you, listen to what's going on in your community and in your surroundings, to understand what people need, and that it's not all about you all the time. It's not about the spotlight, but it's about listening and seeing what is needed to make that beautiful sound produced.
That's right. It's all about the pitches and making sure we're in tune and having that one sound all together.
Having that rhythm in common, yeah.
And one great thing too is it's so hard sometimes to find people in our lives that really understand or kind of enjoy the same things we do. And in your passion for music and the arts, you met your husband.
I did.
Talk to us about that. How did this happen?
I did. Well, through my career, early on I was in development work. I did fundraising, and one of my professional jobs was at the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater in New York City. And while I was in the fundraising office, my future husband, Steve, was the sound guy for Ailey. He was on tour with the company, but when he came back home to New York, we kind of just met. That's a very early picture of us. But we had just met in New York and hanging out at the shows, and in between shows, we just go out and explore New York City together and bop around from swing dancing to blues clubs and all the wonderful food in the city there. So we kind of got to know each other hanging out, and of course at the Ailey performances, which we both had a passion for. I mean, they're absolutely beautiful dancers there, and that just grew into a beautiful, lovely relationship. And Steve, in between jobs, when he got off the road, came back down to Delaware because he had been a UD student and kept an apartment down here. So he came back here what he thought was temporary.
Yes.
And I soon followed after him, and we both moved in together in Wilmington here. And it's been 20 years. We've made roots, we've started our family, and now we're definite Wilmingtonians.
Yes, I was going to say, I love the story when you share it, because it's like, wow, from New York to Wilmington, and this is where you live, work, and play.
It is.
Over 15 years. So talk to us about that moment when you actually landed at the Grand Opera House and how that was for you.
That was a really great move for me. When I first moved to this area, I was working in Philadelphia, so I would do the commute on the SEPTA line on the R2 up to Philly every day. But the opportunity opened up at the Grand to be a development director, and that's what my background was in fundraising. And so I jumped on it, and I was really lucky to join the team at the Grand Opera House, and Steve was already part of the production team here. So again, we found ourselves working together. And I've just loved every minute at the Grand. It's been almost 14 years now. The first 3 years were in development, and then they went through a bit of restructuring and asked me if I wanted to take on a different role, moving over to community engagement. And so I had wanted to do that for some time, actually be more in charge of the programming than the fundraising pieces. So I jumped on that opportunity. I was really thrilled to start taking care of the education and outreach pieces at the Opera House, and it's just been a really great ride since then.
And we'll get into all the other programs that the Grand has, because it is a staple in our community here. Take us back to this moment.
This, I think, was just recently at our sensory-friendly performances, where the first one was doing a Q&A with the artists on stage, and this is just introducing a show. But the sensory-friendly performances, I guess since I started in community engagement, I eventually learned how to do programming, actually seeking out the artists, working with the agents to determine their viability in our community here, negotiating contracts, all of that. And I was doing that for our stages of discovery, our school matinee programs, and I started moving into some more family programming, because those agents would frequently have artists who do school shows but also family shows, because they're meeting the needs of the same age group, those same audiences. So I started some family programming, and through our Summer Explorers series, which are some shows that we bring to the stage during the summertime, I worked with an artist named Jeff Boyer. Jeff had a show called Bubble Trouble, and his wife, another husband-wife team, Leah Cullen Boyer, is his manager. So Leah had contacted me after we had this great show together, a great relationship with them, and Leah talked to me about what sensory-friendly performances are. It was the first time I had really, I had heard of them, but I didn't quite understand what it was about. And Leah wanted to have Jeff come back down here and do a sensory-friendly performance in order to expose it to some of the funders that were in our area. So I had to take a look at this and see how we could make it work. Now, at sensory-friendly performances, they have the same kind of artist fees, the same kind of production fees, the same kind of budget on the expense side, but you want to keep your tickets at an affordable level, and you don't want to sell out the whole theater. You're not looking to maximize the income on the ticket side. So we had to find some underwriting support to make that possible for us at the Grand. And we were really lucky that the Next Generation, a group at the Delaware Community Foundation, had just launched into a new grant-making focus, and they were looking to support projects for the arts for social change. Yes. So we worked with them and applied for that grant money, and they provided the seed funding to get us right into our first couple of sensory-friendly performances.
Yes, take us back to the beginning of this program.
So our first two shows were in early 2018. And like I said, we brought in Jeff Boyer as our first artist. Jeff did a show called Big Bubble Bonanza. But he does a fabulous, fabulous job of entertaining children with all different types of bubble tricks, and he brings them up on the stage, and he gets them involved in the act, and Leah talks with the audience members before the show. So she kind of interviews and picks out children, making sure that she knows that they're comfortable coming up on stage, that the parents are comfortable with them coming up and participating as well. And sometimes it might be, well, this kid wants to go up, but they won't go up without their sibling who's with them, so we make sure we get both of them up there. The whole environment is just about making sure people are comfortable. So we started off with Jeff and the Bubble Show, and then our second one that season was the Acrobats of Circtacular, and they had the similar approach. There wasn't audience participation, but they were, it was a very gentle and calming performance with easygoing lights and easygoing sound. And that's, again, the environment that we're creating is just of comfort levels. So instead of turning the lights all down to pitch blackness, the audience we want to have them up a little bit, so the lights are at a quarter or a half in the house, so the audience can see what's going on around them. They're free to get up and move their seats. They're free to get up and, if they want to dance at their seats or dance in the aisles, and that's what people have been doing. That's what the kids have been doing. And that's why this is good for not just children with special needs, but parents with rambunctious little toddlers who just can't stay in their seat, and they're so excited by the performance, 3, 4, 5 years old, even older, but if they're so excited they want to get up out of their seats and they want to dance and participate, that's fine. We welcome that, and we encourage that. So there's a lot of interaction between the artists and the audience, and a really great relationship that goes on as part of these performances.
And one thing that I have such a true appreciation for, because I myself, I have a daughter, and I remember early ages of her life, I started to see certain things, and I didn't know, because autism, it's a spectrum. And then I remember getting her tested, and it was like a 4-hour-long test at AI in Moore's Hospital. But my point is, I started to learn that there's also something out here called selective mutism, and that can also affect not only the way how you speak to people, but the way you hear things. Sound is really big. The way you communicate with other people, comfortability, being shy, being reserved, things like that. And as you're talking, I'm thinking just to myself, I'm like, wow, this is, for me, I can see the benefit of it.
Absolutely.
Because these kids need that type of outlet. One thing my daughter's always complaining about and talking about is how she feels isolated and not included, because in schools, if you have allergies, they leave a little table and that's where you have to sit, and everyone else gets to sit.
Separated from anybody. That's
here you're
what
bringing
we are trying to do, is make this all about inclusion. So it's not just a special performance where just children with autism are invited to come. It is for all families. It is for all abilities. It's for all ages.
That's right.
At this last show, we had Dan and Claudia Zanes just a month ago. Some of the video you showed was from that show.
Okay.
And we had an adult member in the audience who, during the Q&A after the show, thanked the artist and the Grand for presenting such a performance because she suffers from migraines. So it's not about these disabilities, but it's about, again, the comfort level. So she got up and thanked us because she could enjoy this music, this really wonderful, talented musicians, in an environment where it wasn't blaring in her ears, and she was able to enjoy every bit of that concert. And the kids that were there were running around, dancing in the aisles, and adults were participating. If I may, I have one really special story from that performance.
Sure.
I had a friend come and attend that show with her husband and 15-year-old son. Okay. And the three of them sat in the back row, relatively quiet, relatively subdued for the whole performance. They didn't get up and dance in the aisles. They didn't, they were clapping and moving around a bit, but they weren't, 100% in like some of the other audience members. And I got a note from her the next day. I was curious to see how they enjoyed it. And her son, who suffers from, has autism, the condition of autism. He had been for 9 years of his life nonverbal. She told me that he had been to other shows, really big rock concerts. He loves to dance. He's very active. But in this performance, he sat back and enjoyed the music, and it was the first time they ever heard him sing and hum.
Wow.
At 15 years old. So that touched my heart, that we could make a difference and provide that amazing moment for a family that may not have happened in a different type of environment. So, it was welcoming. It was, come in and enjoy the music and do it in a way that's comfortable for you. And then really wonderful things can come out of that.
Well, it's such an impactful program, as you're sharing with us. I can only imagine, because it's so frustrating when some people take things for granted. And for that family, that was a monumental moment. It was so huge, because I come from that struggle, so I can understand it and appreciate the journey.
To have
but
your
just
child.
to know that that program was the reason why, or played a part in that moment for that family.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And we've had some really great positive stories. A member of our advisory committee, who helps us guide and implement all different aspects of the sensory friendly shows. She also has a son with autism and social behavioral challenges.
Okay.
And she came to the first couple of shows, and it was only through our audience surveys that I got to understand where she was coming from. And then I invited her onto the advisory committee, and now her son comes to all the performances, and he's getting more comfortable with being at the Grand, and it becomes kind of a family destination. And that's what I want the Grand to be, a family destination. My kids grew up there. My kids, are used to running up and down the aisles when the house was empty, or, they played hide and seek throughout the building. But they're so used to being there because they grew up there, and I would like other families to enjoy that same relationship with what the Grand Opera House is, as the building and as the organization.
That's wonderful to hear. And not only just families, I also know that you shared interest in seeing ways on how educators, healthcare professionals, first-time responders, and also just people who can actually benefit but also become like community partners for the program.
We have a lot of partners. We do. Like I said, we started this advisory committee. When I first launched into this program, we got 100% support from our board of directors, just like, this is a good thing, let's back it up and let's make it happen. One of our board members, Dom Pedante, volunteered to chair our advisory committee, and he pursued some of the initial members, which are personal and professional friends of him, but they are people who have they're occupational therapists, or they're parents of children with autism, or they're educators that are in the system working with special education. All different types of backgrounds coming together to everybody's got something different to put into the plan and our approach. So we initially reached out to Easterseals, and we have some staff members from Easterseals on our committee. We have Autism Delaware, part of the committee and planning. We had some of their staff come and give training, we had professional training to our volunteer show corps, which are all the ushers and ticket takers that work these performances, our production crew, our box office and front of house staff. Everybody was trained in advance on what to expect, how to work with this population, how to make preparations for even the most unexpected activities or occurrences. So we wanted to make sure all of that was set in place ahead of time. And they're also helping us get the word out to the community, to their families that they serve. So
Yes.
I've reached out to the Swank Autism Center that Nemours has opened up just recently,
Okay.
and lots of others. Brandywine Center for Autism. They're all places that provide these services to the families, and we just want them to know what we're doing so that they can tell the families and let the families know to come and enjoy the arts and have an entertainment experience together.
Yes, and the Censor Friendly show was just one of many shows at the Grand Opera House. Being a Delawarean here, I can actually attest to so many firsts for me happening at the Grand Opera House. A lot of our first times that we see artists that we've never seen before in other cities. Or for me, when I was participating in the 2001 Miss Hispanic of Delaware pageant, I was on the stage there for the first time. I was behind the scenes in the makeup room, and I was back in 2001 when I was at the Grand.
It's great to see different members of the community come in and as rental events, but still our community using the space and the facilities for a variety of different purposes.
And let's talk about the space. Tell us a little bit about the history of the Grand and how it's a big staple in our community.
Well, gosh, it's got a long, long history, 148 years old, right? It was built in 1871 by the Masons Lodge. They still reside in the building up on the 3rd and 4th floors, but they transferred ownership of the building to the Grand in the 1970s. When we launched into the centennial, 1971 was the centennial celebration and the initial launch into restoring the Grand Opera House. And I did work with some of the Grand pioneers to memorialize their stories, to make sure that their stories of how they restored the Grand got recorded and kept for history's sake. It's beautiful. They did a wonderful job bringing it back to its original condition, or as close to original as we could find. So much research and detail has gone into the aesthetics and the look of the Opera House, the redoing the facade and the cast iron elements, and so the beauty of the building and the history of it was a really important part and something that we still take care of with great pride. The Baby Grand, which is the smaller venue right next door, in fact attached to the Opera House, is a smaller theater, 300 seats, and that opened in 2000, and that gives us the ability to have some more intimate performances and events there.
Okay.
One of my favorite events that we hold at the Baby Grand is the MLK Voice for Youth competition, so another partnership event where in January we bring in students for spoken word competition. They're all high school students, and they give their own original spoken word pieces that are so inspirational. And that's the thing about the Grand, is we're bringing in members of the community that inspire each other, inspire the audiences, and it's just been a very rewarding place to work, and place for me to put my roots down here.
Yes, I was going to say, a lot of big names came through the Grand Opera
A
House.
lot of big names.
For me, I remember the moment when Sinbad came to town.
Oh yeah, we've had Sinbad here a couple of years.
Yes,
a couple of times. And who else has been? Wanda Sykes is definitely a regular. Some great comedians, some great, I think when we first started into the big name artists, we had the White Stripes was a big deal, and back in 2007, I think it was, and we've had President Barack Obama campaign at the Grand. We've had
our inaugurations at the Grand Opera House.
City, absolutely. The mayors come through, and a lot of important events. So it's a strong piece of history right here.
It is, and thank God it's still here, because I can't imagine, especially on Market Street, just Wilmington without the Grand Opera House.
We don't want to imagine that.
I cannot. Yeah. And it's very different from any other arts. I mean, we have a lot of different places around the city of Wilmington that you can go for the arts, but I think the Grand Opera House is unique in its own way.
It is. We've got a lot of different things going on, so
And so talk to us a little bit about the future. What's the future for the sensory friendly program? I know we're going into, this is the third year.
Yep.
We have one more performance coming up in May.
One more performance in May, Sunday, May 17th. That one is The Magic of Kevin Spencer. So I'm really excited to bring this artist in. He's another one like Dan and Claudia Zanes who's very specialized in the sensory friendly performances. He does a lot of outreach to schools and to other kind of community organizations. So I'm actually working on a residency schedule for Kevin to hopefully bring some professional development workshops to educators, teaching teachers how to bring arts and integrate the arts into their classrooms. He can do workshops with healthcare professionals and also with first responders on teaching them how to react and deal with your clients if they have autism, if they come across somebody who is nonverbal or who just won't look you in the eye or just is uncomfortable with communication or some sort. So that's what Kevin can help other professionals with, how to deal with that and lessen the stress and anxiety that might go into certain situations. So I'm really excited on developing that along with him and along with some other new community partners. And then next season is yet to be seen, but I do plan on bringing out more sensory-friendly performances in the coming year.
And just the education alone and the exposure that you're bringing to this is very important, because as you were just talking, I'm thinking to myself, I can talk from a personal experience on the nonverbal part. That can affect these kids' lives when they're in the classroom, when it's time to do group projects. You know, you might not get that high score grade, but you're a very intellectual young student.
Absolutely.
But because of whatever spectrum you're on, you're just not going to communicate. And like you said, some kids are nonverbal for years.
Yeah.
But here, I like that everyone's treated the same, everyone's treated equally, and you're bringing awareness,
them all
education,
together. And helping them to understand each other and each other's challenges. And you want children to learn how to support other children, you know, as they're working together through problem solving and communication. And I think it's a good development exercise for all ages.
Wonderful.
Sure.
And before we leave, is there anything else you would like to share with us?
Oh, I don't know. How much time do you have? I mean, we've got so much going on at the Grand at all times. We have our stages of discovery, school matinees, which are field trip experiences, outings for school students to come and experience live theater, and it's all curriculum based, so teachers can bring back lessons into the classroom. We also have experiences for adults, and we have up in Studio One a series of social dance events. So we have been doing for several years some salsa nights at Grand Baile, and we also this year brought in some more country line dancing with an instructor named Rob Holly, who does a fabulous time introducing both beginners and some advanced dancers and line dancing, which is a lot of fun. And in June, we're going to have a disco night, so anybody who loves the 70s disco can come out and do the hustle with us. So that's a lot of fun things going on. We've got the Grand Galleries, both the Baby Grand and the Copeland Hall lobbies are places where we exhibit artwork by local artists and join in the Wilmington's Art on the Town, the monthly art loop.
Yes.
So people can come out and visit us that way. There's lots of things to come do at the Grand.
Well, thank you so much, and we've shared the information so people will not miss out on anything going on at the
Grand. Find it on our website, find it on our Facebook page, and if you have any questions, just give me a call.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Pam, for your time today.
I appreciate your time, and thanks for having me here. It's been such a pleasure talking with you.
And continue on. I hope the sensory-friendly program continues on at the Grand Opera House, because it's such a needed program within our community.
It really is.
And thank you for bringing that.
Your support.
Thank you. You're welcome. And on behalf of all of us here at WITN 22, we'd like to take the opportunity to say thank you so much for watching this episode of In Focus. I've been your host, Yesenia Taveras.